So thank you, everyone, for having me. As I've been listening to the talks this morning, I was sort of reminded that I might be your very own media lab rat in this discussion, as I actually got my start working on campaigns. I worked on the Dean and Kerry presidential campaigns in the US. And before I took my job at the Huffington Post, I rescinded my position as a co-founder and organizer of the new Organizing Institute, which teaches techies and activists how to use technology to organize ideas and people. So I come to media actually with a whole host of other skills, but also an experience very much shaped by that time. So I was asked to talk in this session specifically to the Guardian's worldview and how that impacts the daily work of journalists. So I'm just going to tackle it heads on. But as I was thinking about it, I was reminded a lot of Christopher Daly's work. He's a journalist and historian. He wrote a really interesting book called Covering America, which is an examination of journalism and how it's evolved in the United States. And what he says starkly in the preface is to understand the news business, it's important to understand the news as business. Very much to your point that you have to understand journalism and its social, its economic, its historic context. But also he says, the practice of journalism is at one and the same time a business and a vocation. One must understand it as a craft. So for me, I think those are two very, very interesting ways of thinking about journalism at The Guardian. So first and foremost, to the business model, The Guardian answers to the Scott Trust. And the Scott Trust was set up in the 1930s by sons of the Guardian's longest-serving editor. And the position of the trust is really to ensure The Guardian in perpetuity. But now to The Guardian as a cultural enterprise, the craft, and specifically to the question of its worldview. Russ Bridger, the editor-in-chief, has said, "I don't mind saying we are a liberal progressive paper. There's no point in disguising it." But when you ask the question about a worldview, I must admit, as someone who's worked there for 2 years, I'd be hard-pressed to actually articulate or define the worldview that was supposed in the question. And it reminds me actually of an exchange I read about recently in which a journalist was asked, sort of how do you know when you're being objective? And it's not like they said there's a state of mind in being objective, but that they actually do try and ask themselves if they were being accurate, what assumptions and suppositions they'd bring into your work. But what I do know is that at The Guardian, there are certain topics that guide us. There's tremendous interest in politics. There's interest in the environment. There's also a section devoted to sustainable business. There's also a strong commitment to investigative journalism, some of which Dan spoke about today. But I think the real sort of differentiator or commitment to us is what we call being open. And this is a term I think that lends itself sometimes to abuse, and it's also quite abstract. And I think the criticisms implicit in your talk that a lot of times these words are tossed around, without meaning. So I'll break it down. We see ourselves as serving the public, and we know that today technology serves as one of the primary tools that the public organizes itself, one of the primary tools it's used to disseminate ideas, to debate, and to discuss. And we also know that social networking, right, has had tremendous influence, particularly in how it puts the individual front and center. A lot of the talk today has been about trust, and I think a lot of people have wondered, how is it that these institutions have lost so much trust? But we've also seen profound instances in which journalists, right, carry their own relationship with their readers. And for us at The Guardian, our interest is in teaching and guiding journalists to responsibly use these tools to engage the public such that their work is trusted. Specifically, their coverage is trusted. I take your point, too, that trust isn't something very general. It's what you gain day by day. So there are a number of things that we'll do, like corrections are posted visibly. They're posted online. Journalists are expected, of course, to return emails, to answer questions posed to them. We frequently will do chats where the journalists have to sort of take any and every question that's sent their way. We also have a team of community coordinators that does trainings within The Guardian and teaches journalists how to use new and different tools. We also have a user studio within The Guardian where we invite in Guardian readers and ask them what they really think of our coverage, what they think of new and different features. And to examples of some specific examples, we have a comment site, comment is free. And at one point, it was actually turned over to the leaders of the Occupy movement. The idea was that they could commission pieces as they saw fit, and that this was actually one of the better ways for our readers to understand how the movement itself thought and what were the differences between leaders who were in the US and Germany and elsewhere. And we've developed lots of features that I think are meant to actually challenge some of these standards of journalism. So in the US, we have a feature called Opening Up. And any and every time you see commentary on Comment is Free, and it's a first-person account, so say it's a mom who's struggling to deal with her son's autism, and the piece might make certain claims, of course, about what it's like and what support there is. We ask readers who've dealt with the same experience to contribute their commentary, which we'll then publish and link back to the piece. The idea being that one person's account, however powerful, is just that, one person's account. And so we open up the exposition to feedback and commentary from other readers. But for me, as a journalist, and bringing it back to the question of the worldview, the expectation on me at The Guardian is that I will read and listen and acknowledge and try and understand, when it comes to technology, the criticism and feedback that comes my way. And that I'm to be held accountable by both the newsroom and our public. And that this is a regular, ongoing process. The expectation is that I am to read criticism of my work, that I'm to understand what people are saying about it, that we're not secluded, that we are of the web. So that's my answer.
Great. Thank you very much.